picture this, right? You are sitting on a mattress on the floor of your childhood bedroom,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
and you're eating this cheap bowl of instant noodles, and you are just mindlessly scrolling through Instagram.
The classic doom scroll.
Exactly. And every swipe is like another friend buying a beautiful house or getting married or landing some massive corporate promotion.
Right.
And sitting there in that bedroom, looking up at the exact same posters you had on your wall when you were, 15 years old, you get this crushing, heavy feeling. This feeling that you completely missed the starting gun to your own life.
Like you were still bending down, tying your shoes while everyone else just, sprinted down the track.
Yeah.
It's a remarkably isolating, visceral feeling.
It really is. And if you, listening right now, have ever felt that way, that rising panic of being fundamentally behind in life, you are going to want to hear what we have for you today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Usually when we tackle heavy psychological concepts like the social clock or the paralyzing fear of starting over, we're pulling from dense, peer-reviewed clinical journals.
Right. The really dry stuff.
Yeah, we expect profound life advice to be wrapped up in all this intimidating academic jargon. But today's source material is completely unexpected.
It really is.
It's actually a transcript from a YouTube video by an English language learning channel called Speak English with Class.
Which is such a brilliant Trojan horse for this kind of advice.
Right.
I mean, this content is designed specifically for intermediate or B1 level English learners. So the vocabulary is meant to be accessible, the pacing is cozy, and the tone is just really gentle.
But in the process of teaching English idioms and vocabulary, the speakers on this channel accidentally delivered an absolute masterclass on human psychology.
They really did.
They somehow managed to articulate the exact mechanics of feeling stuck and, more importantly, how to actually hit the reset button without blowing up your entire life.
Which is what we all want, honestly.
Exactly. So the mission of this deep dive is to extract those hidden life lessons. We are going to figure out how to navigate these heavy life transitions without overwhelming ourselves. Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, to make this truly useful, I want to ask you, the listener, to do something before we go any further.
Oh, I like this.
Think of one specific area in your life right now where you are desperate for a fresh start. It doesn't have to be a massive existential crisis,
Right.
Maybe it's your career trajectory, maybe it's your physical health, or even a hobby like finally learning a new language. Just hold that one specific area in your mind.
Okay.
Because the framework we're about to pull from this source is tailored exactly for that friction you are currently feeling.
That's perfect. Let's start by diagnosing that friction, that acute feeling of being late that we talked about with the mattress and the instant noodles.
Yeah.
Why is that our default setting?
Yeah.
The source brings up this imagery, and it hits so hard because it perfectly captures the illusion of the social clock.
The social clock is essentially the unwritten timetable that society hands us at birth.
Right.
It dictates when you should graduate, when you should get married, when you should reach peak earning potential. And when we scroll social media, we're looking at the ultimate enforcement mechanism of that clock.
Oh, that's such a good way to put it.
The transcript points out how dangerous this is.
Yeah.
Because we are taking our own messy, behind-the-scenes reality, the doubts, the cheap noodles, the messy room, and we are slamming it up against everyone else's highlight reel.
And our brains just accept that highlight reel as objective truth, which I find so incredibly frustrating.
We fall for it every time.
We do.
Yeah.
We know rationally that people only post their wins. We know filters exist. The source even has this brilliant modernized take on an old idiom.
Oh, the grass is greener one.
Yeah. We've all heard that the grass is always greener on the other side. They update it to say sometimes the grass isn't greener, it just has a really good filter or good editing.
That modern spin points to a deeper psychological trap, actually. Well, when you look at that filtered grass, your brain's evolutionary wiring kicks in. Humans are deeply social, tribal creatures.
Right.
Historically, if you were falling behind the pack, you were in physical danger of being left behind by the tribe to fend for yourself.
Yeah.
So when you see your peers hitting societal milestones that you aren't,
Your brain thinks you're going to die.
literally, your nervous system interprets that not just as a mild bummer, but as an existential threat to your survival.
Wow. But I want to push back a little on this whole concept of falling behind in the first place, because the very phrase implies a fixed track.
Right.
If life is a race, who actually drew the finish line? Who decided the route?
Well, the cultural consensus dictates the route. It's built into the fabric of how we measure a successful life.
I hear that, but those norms are entirely made up. We walk around with this idea of broken clock in our heads.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm 35 and I'm not a homeowner. My internal gears must be busted. I think that's a complete fallacy. Your clock isn't broken. It's just set to your unique time zone. Expecting everyone to hit the same milestones at the same time is like expecting someone in Tokyo and someone in London to eat breakfast at the exact same moment.
That is a highly effective way to reframe it.
Yeah.
The track itself is an illusion. We are measuring our individual, highly nuanced journey against a standardized ruler that was never designed to measure our specific circumstances.
Which brings up a really interesting problem. Let's say you take that to heart, right?
Okay.
You delete Instagram, you stop looking at the filtered grass completely, and you kill the external comparison.
That's a huge step.
It is. But for a lot of people, they are still left sitting alone in their room with this lingering sense of emptiness. Why does that internal stuckness persist even when the highlight reels are completely gone?
Because removing the external comparison doesn't automatically grant you internal purpose.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
This is where the transcript introduces a very specific vocabulary word for its English learners. Stagnant.
The water metaphor they use to explain stagnant is so vivid.
It really is.
They point out that fresh water flows. It moves over rocks. It makes noise. It feels fundamentally alive.
Right.
But stagnant water just sits there. It doesn't move. And if it sits there long enough, it eventually starts to smell bad. It becomes toxic.
When we map that onto human behavior, stagnation is waking up, going to the exact same job, scrolling the exact same apps, eating the exact same lunch, and having the exact same conversations every single day.
It sounds exhausting when you list it out like that.
It is. But the insidious danger of stagnation is that nothing is objectively wrong. Your house isn't on fire. You aren't in acute crisis.
Right, you're just existing.
Exactly. So you feel like you aren't allowed to complain even though your life feels completely on pause?
It's a slow, quiet decay rather than a sudden, dramatic crash. But then the source contrasts that feeling of being stagnant with another concept entirely, being misaligned.
Yes.
Because sometimes you aren't just sitting still in a pond. Sometimes you are actually moving, you're working incredibly hard, but you are moving in the wrong direction.
What's fascinating here is the psychological distinction between those two states.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Stagnation is a lack of energy. Misalignment is a misallocation of energy.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
And the source uses an incredible metaphor to illustrate this. They describe the feeling of forcing your foot into a pair of shoes that you absolutely loved back in high school.
Right.
They were your favorite shoes. But now, your foot has grown 2 sizes.
I have to admit, this metaphor really messed with my head.
How so?
Because functionally, you can still physically force your foot inside those small shoes. You can tie the laces. But you are going to suffer with every single step you take all day long. The friction is going to tear your feet apart.
And consider what we typically do when we feel that friction in our careers or our relationships. We rarely blame the shoes. We blame our feet.
Yes. That is exactly what I struggle to understand. Why is our default reaction to turn inward and attack ourselves?
It's so common.
Why do we say, why am I so unhappy at this prestigious job? Or why can't I just be grateful for what I have?
Because those shoes represent our past identity and our past commitments. The human ego clings desperately to consistency, which is known in psychology as the sunk cost fallacy.
Oh, right. We've invested so much already.
Exactly. To admit that the shoes no longer fit is to admit that the path you've been walking for the last 5 or 10 years might be the wrong one. It requires a painful grieving process for the old dream.
That's heavy.
The transcript shares a highly relatable anecdote about this. One of the speakers talks about how they deeply believed they had to be a manager by a certain age. That was the ultimate goal.
Right.
When it didn't happen, they felt like a total loser. But when they finally stopped blaming their feet, they realized they didn't even want to be a manager.
Really?
Yeah. They hated administrative tasks. They actually preferred creative work.
They were judging their current self by a metric invented by their past self. I really want to ask you listening right now, how many of your current goals were actually decided by the 16-year-old version of you?
That's a great question.
Think about that for a second. We are letting a teenager, someone who probably didn't even know how to do their own laundry or pay a utility bill, dictate our success metrics at 30 or 40 years old.
It's a guarantee of profound misery. Your goals absolutely have to evolve as your capacity and your self-knowledge evolve.
I completely agree, but letting go of that 16-year-old's dream is incredibly hard in practice.
Oh, definitely.
Even if we recognize that the shoes are too small, we still carry this heavy habit of judging our current reality. We look at where we are and we think, this isn't where I'm supposed to be. How does the source suggest we actually short-circuit that judgment?
By identifying and dismantling what they call chapter compare syndrome.
Chapter compare syndrome. I like that.
This is the cognitive distortion of comparing your current messy early stage reality with someone else's polished late stage reality. Or even worse, comparing your current chapter to a fictionalized chapter you think you should be in by now.
The analogies they use to break this down are fantastic. They say, imagine watching a show on Netflix. You wouldn't point at the main character in episode 1 and call them a massive failure just because they haven't achieved the ultimate resolution that happens in episode 10.
Exactly.
They haven't lived those episodes yet. There is a necessary arc of character development that has to happen in episodes 2 through 9.
They also use a great video game analogy. You wouldn't call yourself a failure for struggling on level 3 just because your friend happens to be breezing through level 7.
Right. It's just a different stage.
You are simply in a different part of the game. You haven't collected the tools, the armor, or the experience points they have yet.
And this brings us back to that highlight reel, but it adds a much deeper, almost darker layer to it.
Oh, for sure.
Let's say we are looking at someone who is currently in season 5 of their life. They've got the house, the luxury car, the perfect partner. The source reminds us that we are only seeing the shiny rewards of that season.
We don't see what it took to get there.
We are completely blind to the hidden costs.
And those costs are often exceptionally steep. That person in season 5 might have the impressive job title, but they might also be dealing with a crushing amount of corporate stress, chronic sleep deprivation, and a deep, unshakable inner loneliness that they can't post about online.
Wow.
When you covet someone else's chapter, you are coveting the entire package, including the demons they battle behind closed doors.
The grass might have a nice filter, but it could also be sitting right on top of a massive sinkhole.
Exactly. And the source goes even further by acknowledging that not every chapter is a fun, upward trajectory montage of growth.
Right.
Sometimes the chapter you are currently in is just fundamentally heavy.
The heavy chapters. These are the seasons filled with mounting medical bills, complex family problems that have no easy solution, chronic health issues, or just a quiet, pervasive sadness that you can't quite articulate to anyone around you.
During those heavy seasons, we are bombarded by a very toxic societal pressure to pull yourself together.
Oh, I hate that phrase.
Society gets uncomfortable with our pain, so it places a relentless demand on us to immediately stop feeling our negative emotions, put on a brave face, and act perfectly normal. It requires an immense draining amount of energy to maintain that facade.
It's exhausting just thinking about it. When you are already carrying a boulder, society asks you to juggle while carrying it so you don't inconvenience anyone else.
That's exactly what it feels like. But the source offers a much kinder and, frankly, psychologically sounder alternative.
Okay, what is it?
Instead of trying to perform perfectly, your only goal in a heavy chapter should be trying to keep your head above water.
Meaning, don't worry about swimming a marathon right now. Just don't drown.
That is the core of it. Because in a heavy season, your cognitive load is maxed out. Your brain is dedicating all of its background resources to processing stress, trauma, or grief.
Right.
So if all you did today was eat a decent meal, answer one single important email, and take a shower, that is enough. In heavy times, mere survival is a massive success. Any movement, however microscopic, is a victory.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. When you are deep in one of those heavy chapters, or when you are sitting in that stagnant water, your brain tricks you into believing it's permanent.
It really does.
It feels like this is just how life is going to be forever. But the transcript points out the absolute, undeniable inevitability of change.
Yes.
And they use this beautiful metaphor. Winter doesn't send an email asking for permission to arrive. It just arrives.
It just happens.
The temperature drops, the leaves fall, and eventually, without any effort on your part, winter leaves and spring comes.
Human life operates on the exact same principles. Change is going to happen whether we try to force it or not. The economy shifts, new ideas suddenly appear, jobs change, people move into and out of our lives.
So true.
We are constantly growing, even on the days we feel completely stuck and stagnant.
Which is a huge relief, honestly. It means the pressure isn't entirely on our shoulders to magically invent a new life out of thin air. We don't have to control the weather. We just have to learn how to navigate the shifting seasons.
That naturally brings us to the actual mechanics of that navigation.
Yeah.
Because understanding the changing seasons is great in theory, but it leaves a very practical question hanging in the air.
Right. Once we've reframed our timeline, once we've finally taken off the misaligned shoes, and we've stopped judging our level 3 against someone else's level 7,
Yeah.
how do we functionally execute a start over on a random Monday morning?
The biggest roadblock people face here is falling for the myth of the big explosion reset.
Oh, I know this one well. The Hollywood movie montage reset.
We have been conditioned by media to believe that starting over requires catastrophic action.
Yep.
We think we have to march into our boss's office and quit our job, move to a new city, get a radical new haircut, throw out all our clothes, and commit to a brand new, grueling gym routine all in the exact same week.
And I've tried versions of that. Do you know what happens?
You're burnt out.
You make it to about 2 p.m. on Tuesday, you are completely physically and emotionally exhausted, and you just collapse back into your old habits. Why do our brains sabotage us like that?
It isn't sabotage. It's basic biology. The human brain is fundamentally wired to conserve energy and to perceive sudden, massive changes to your routine as a severe threat to your survival.
Ah, of course.
When you try to change everything at once, your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, starts firing off alarm bells. It floods your system with stress hormones to make you stop whatever crazy new thing you're doing and return to the safety of the familiar.
So the big explosion reset actually triggers our own internal security system against us.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Which is why the solution the source provides is the concept of microactions.
Okay, tell me about microactions.
These are moves that are so incredibly tiny, so seemingly insignificant, that they fly completely under the radar of your amygdala. As the transcript beautifully puts it, you need to make moves so small that your fear doesn't scream.
Fear doesn't scream. I think that is the most brilliant metric for setting a goal I ever heard.
It really changes everything.
If the thought of your new goal makes your chest tight or makes your stomach drop, it's too big. You have to dial it back until the fear is quiet.
Exactly. A microaction isn't deciding to run a 5-mile marathon tomorrow morning. It's committing to a 10-minute walk after dinner.
Right.
It's not overhauling your entire nutritional profile. It's drinking 1 extra glass of water today. If you want to pivot to a completely new career, it's not aggressively applying to 50 jobs and quitting yours. It's watching 1 single 10-minute video about that new industry or writing 1 honest sentence in a notebook before you go to bed.
They use this great metaphor of a massive ship at sea to explain this. A true reset isn't ripping the steering wheel violently to the left.
No, if you do that, the ship capsizes.
Exactly. A reset is like slowly changing the ship's direction by just 1 single degree today, and then holding it, and maybe 1 degree tomorrow.
It's so gradual.
In the moment, that shift is entirely invisible. You look out at the horizon, and it looks like nothing has changed. But over time, over hundreds of miles, that tiny 1 degree shift means you end up on a completely different continent.
And crucially, the source normalizes the reality of failure within this process because the ship will drift.
Right. It's not a perfect line.
They introduce this vital concept of bouncing back. There are going to be days when a heavy chapter is just too heavy and you are too sad or too tired to do even the microaction. You won't take the 10-minute walk. You won't drink the water. You will miss a day.
And usually that's the exact moment we throw our hands up and say, well, I ruined the streak. The reset is over.
But the transcript argues that missing a day is entirely normal. It is baked into the human experience. The actual start over doesn't happen because you perfectly executed a flawless new routine for an entire year.
Right.
The start over happens in the many, many small moments where you consciously choose to gently return to the path after wandering off it.
So missing a day is just neutral data. The act of bouncing back is the actual skill we are trying to build.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, these microactions compound over time in a way that builds immense resilience. They allow you to work through your problems step by step, alongside your fear, rather than constantly fighting a draining battle against it. You are gently, consistently guiding the ship, rather than trying to punch the ocean.
That is incredibly empowering. Which brings us to one of my favorite phrases from a source. The ball is in your court.
Yes, I love that part.
They emphasize this so clearly at the end of their lesson. That next 1% step, that single tiny degree of the ship's wheel, it is entirely up to you.
It's totally in your control.
It's not dependent on your parents, it's not dependent on the economy, and it certainly isn't dictated by the highlight reels you see on social media. The agency is yours.
It places the control back in the listener's hands, but it does so in a way that is profoundly manageable rather than burdensome. You only have to control the next 1 degree.
And that is a shift we can all actually handle. So let's bring this all together. Whether you originally found that source material to practice your English vocabulary, or you are using it right now to navigate a massive career change, or you were just trying to find some solid footing after a really heavy winter season in your life,
Yeah.
the core message remains the exact same. Your internal clock is not broken. You are not late for your own life because there is no universal finish line.
Absolutely not.
And a fresh start is never going to be some massive, exhausting explosion. It's just a 1% micro action. It's pouring that glass of water, taking that short walk, or finally looking in the mirror and admitting that those old shoes simply don't fit your feet anymore.
It is ultimately about having the courage to choose a much kinder, more realistic story for yourself.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with this final thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day.
All right. What is it?
If every season of life, the stagnant water, the mismatched shoes, the heavy winters, is really just necessary preparation for your next chapter, what if the feeling of being late or stuck isn't a failure at all, but the exact alarm clock you needed to finally wake up and pay attention to what you truly want?
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Keep taking those 1% steps. We'll catch you next time.